Welcome. Thank you so much for being here, whatever time zone you are in. I'm Gillian Hayes. You've gotten lots of emails from me already, and it's only beginning. You'll get many more. I'm the Vice Provost for Graduate Education and Dean of the Graduate Division here at UCI, and you probably have gotten a formal congratulations, you've been admitted to UCI letter from me as well. So I want to start off by saying what I said in that letter, which is congratulations. Welcome to UCI. We are so excited to potentially have you joining our what we call grad eaters here at UCI. You have gone through so much already in your academic journey that I hope that you are so proud of yourselves, and I am so thrilled to be able to welcome you today. Making the transition to graduate school is a huge adjustment, and even more so for many of you who will be coming from other countries to study here in the US. And I can't even imagine what it must be like to be starting graduate school at the end of the 2 years that we have all just experienced around the planet. So thank you. I'm so pleased to welcome you to our beautiful campus. It is 70 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny outside. You'll have to just trust me on that, but it's what it usually looks like here. So you can come and join us. Our top tier programs, our world-renowned faculty, all of our what I think are just wonderful professional development and health and wellness services that you're going to hear about today are some of what make me thrilled to be a part of UCI. And I am also so pleased to be able to report to you that our campus and our in-person services are back to 100% available and functioning. I have not been able to say that on very many of these webinars, and that our health and safety protocols are something that we are very proud of and will continue to work with everyone to get through. As of this morning, we have a 96% vaccination rate for our students on campus, which is just wonderful. We continue to stay safe, and we do try to have remote options for a lot of services as well. We really are trying to innovate through and create what is truly the post-pandemic university of the future. So over the next little bit of time, I have a wonderful panel of experts here to talk to you all. We're going to do our best to answer your questions. I'm going to introduce each of them, and they'll give you a few minutes overview, and then we'll do a larger Q&A. Many of you sent questions ahead of time, so thank you for that. We'll try to work through those, but also please, if you are on the Zoom, feel free to write your questions into the Q&A and we'll get through those as well. If you are on the Facebook stream, I apologize, we're not monitoring questions there. So switch on over to the Zoom or hope that someone asks the question that you have in mind. So let me begin by introducing our panel, and they are going to give you a little bit of information about themselves, about who they're here to represent, and then we'll get to the question and answers, which I know is what so many of you really care about. So let me start today with Dr. Marcel Hayashida. She's our Assistant Vice Chancellor for Wellness, Health, and Counseling Services. So over a very big portfolio of services that are so helpful to our students always, but particularly the last couple of years. So over to you.
Hi, thank you so much, Dr. Hayes. So we'll load that PowerPoint and then we'll get started, but I'll reintroduce myself again. Dr. Marcel Hayashida, Associate Vice Chancellor for Wellness, Health, and Counseling here. I'm going to go over the offices that I oversee, and then we're happy to take some questions at the end. Excellent, here we are. Okay, so these are just some photos back when everybody was in person, and now we're having that time again. We'll go to the next slide, please. Thank you so much. So I'm going to talk to you first about our Counseling Center and Disability Services Center. So, and this is a very high-level overview, a very quick overview of lots of the things that we're doing. All these offices have websites, social media, and so please you can find lots of answers to your questions. The most important things for the Counseling Center are that there's no charge for any of these services. We have group counseling, couples counseling, individual counseling. Your student fees have already paid for the services. It is short term, right? And so if you have the idea that you're going to go for a year or two during your time in graduate school, that's not really the kind of setup that we have. But you're certainly free to come in, get started. If you need longer term therapy, you'll be referred to one of the many therapists in Orange County or wherever you live. There are drop-in groups, mindfulness meditation groups, parent supports, groups for Black men, people who want to develop their resilience skills. There are case management services. We have crisis care, after hours care. So somebody is always available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the phone to talk to. Workshops, peer programs. As far as DSC, this is something that you wanted to look into this summer as you prepare to come to campus. If you have accommodations for disability that you'd like to make sure are put in place by the time you come here, DSC will be your office to go to. Services, again, are 100% free. We offer testing accommodations, adaptive assistive technology, Braille, note-taking assistants, readers, scribes, ASL interpreters. We have transportation services to get to your classes if you have mobility issues. There are disability awareness events and an ally program as well. Next slide, please. Student Health Center, you'll be hearing a bit from them about the many things that you may need to do. If you have student health insurance, right, UCI insurance, it's called UC SHIP. This is where you're going to go see your doctors if you have insurance. You do not have to, well, if you're international, but many of our students have other providers. Visits are billed to your insurance, like any doctor visit. You have co-pays, insurance charges apply. If you have Kaiser or other kinds of insurances, you may just go to the Kaiser facility. Board certified medical professionals with expertise in student health issues. We have an on-site clinical lab, radiology, pharmacy, specialty care, dermatology, women's health, sports medicines, chiropractic care, psychiatry, really a full service clinic for just about anything you could think of. And again, if it's beyond our expertise, we will refer you to one of the many providers in Orange County or thereabouts. We also have telehealth options, of course, emerging from the pandemic. And so you could see your doctor or talk to a nurse or a physician from the comfort of your own home, depending on the nature of the concern that you have. Another really important office is called the Care Office. Services are also free. And there are confidential services here where you can get counseling and advocacy for intimate partner violence, sexual assault, domestic violence, those sorts of issues. We have holistic healing programming, including yoga for healing, partner retreats. We offer bystander intervention training, information about stalking, domestic violence, peer programs as well. Next slide, please. One wonderful place that you might want to go to is campus recreation. It is a big, beautiful facility called the ARC, but campus recreation is more than just that simple facility. Access to the gym is already paid for by your student fees. There are additional fees for certain kinds of services and certain kinds of classes. We have an indoor track, gym, courts, weight room, a rock wall, a demo kitchen with some amazing programming, fitness testing, massage therapy. It's the home of intramural sports and club sports, recreation and fitness classes, and there are outdoor facilities. So it's not just the ARC in that building, but other kinds of pool and ropes courses and sailing and kayaking and stand-up paddleboarding and all kinds of things in the outdoors. Next office is the Center for Student Wellness and Health Promotion. Again, free. This is the word of the day. You will have already paid for these services through your student services fees. And so this is really about promoting principles of wellness, right? Sleep hygiene, making decisions around your health. We have a nutritionist available, AOD, alcohol and other drugs, consultations, sexual and relationship health, evidence-based practice. So there are workshops and classes. There's a lactation station there if you're coming with a little one, peer programs, internships. Next slide, maybe of use, is this slide or that slide? No, yeah, next slide. Maybe of use if you are bringing a little one to campus. Tuition rates vary by center, but we do have high-quality accredited childcare programs here at UCI. We have 5 facilities with as little as 3 months to as old as 12 years, full-day program, half-day programs. And if you're eligible, you may apply for subsidized funding through the California Department of Education. So some students that they'll be eligible for that. Some centers are open for UCI students and employee families. Some centers are also open to community folks, but please inquire if you are interested in reserving a space for a little one. And our social work office, I believe that's one of the last ones I'll be discussing today. Services are, you guessed it, free. Social workers work with the entire campus community to provide support to students, undergraduate, graduate students, sometimes alumni, sometimes faculty and staff as well. This is not therapy. This is not a clinical setting, not like student health, not like the counseling center, but it is confidential. And case management. So if there are food security issues, housing security issues, if there's high risk, lots of stressors that you have, they can help you navigate what can be very complicated red tape at a large university sometimes. And they do have a lot of online resources. So we really want to make sure that, next slide. So we want to make sure that you take advantage of all of our services. I want to just share really briefly, there are lots of system-wide wellness efforts that we are engaged in. So we are a part of the UC system, which we take advantage of. There's a healthy campus network that where we share best practices, advice, and tips. We have actually become and working towards improving our status as a health promoting university. Long story, but this is the campus has signed and has adopted something called the Okanagan Charter, kind of coming in from Canada, around what it means to not just have health services, but really to embed health and wellness into everything that we do, into services, into policies. So that is something that we're really, really proud of. We share data with other UCs to benchmark and improve services. Super excited about equity and student mental health funding. Please ask me about that if you're interested in that. But we got $1.7 million from the state of California to do some really innovative programming around mental health and making sure that everyone has access to mental health. Next slide, please. There are, a lot of things are accessible in person now, but there are still online mental health resources. Not everyone needs to go see a therapist. There may just be some questions that you have about sleep hygiene or about being nervous or about certain kinds of anxiety. You may not need to spend several sessions with a therapist, but you can do some kind of self-help programming as well. So please visit our websites around online mental health resources. I think there's one more slide. And follow us on social media. We've got many of our offices have Facebook and YouTube and Twitter accounts, but there's some really good information on the Counseling Center, curates some really lovely tips and has a lot of events throughout the year. And we want you to take advantage of that. So welcome again, congratulations, and happy to help in all of your wellness and health needs.
Thank you so much for that. That was wonderful. We've seen a lot of questions coming in on the chat, so keep them coming. We will get to the question and answer time in a little bit, but you'll notice that a lot of the panelists are already responding to your questions in the chat, so that's great. I want to turn next to two people who field a lot of questions during this time of year. So we are lucky enough to have both of them here today. Tim Trevan, who is our Executive Director of Student Housing, as well as Jennifer Nelson Martinez, who is our specialist in terms of running the graduate and family housing part of all of this. So we always get a ton of questions. I know, where are you going to live in Southern California is a big, big question. So I'll let them give you some opening remarks to hopefully cover some of those that are already pressing in your minds.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Hayes. So my name is Tim Trevan. I'm Executive Director for Student Housing, and I'm very pleased to have Jennifer Nelson Martinez with us, our Senior Director for Grad and Family Res Life, because she is able to answer many more detailed questions than I am. But I wanted to have an opportunity to thank you for joining us next fall, or if you're already here, we're happy to have you as part of the UCI community. But we're very excited to have you joining us in the fall. As you probably have already read, as you've done your research, we have three UCI-owned housing communities for grad students. And then we also have our public-private partnership with American Campus Communities, or as we refer to them, ACC, which is another great option for our grad students. New this next year will be that we are adding 1,055 new beds in our Verano complex. These are brand new high-rise units with single private bedrooms for 2 and 4 students, and then also some studios. So we'll be excited to open those prior to the start of this next academic year. And we're also very pleased that we're changing our eligibility in Campus Village, one of our more established housing communities, to be open not only to single students, but also to partnered students. We are going to continue to house our students with dependents and families in Verano Place and Palo Verde, because those facilities do have more of the support systems in place and the support facilities needed for students with dependents. Lots of good stuff happening in housing, and I am going to toss it to Jennifer to talk in more detail about deadlines and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Thank you, Tim. So welcome to UCI and to our Anteater family. A couple things for everybody to know is if you have a housing guarantee, meaning you're coming in a PhD program or you're a terminal master's degree program, you probably already know it. And what's most important for you to know is that you both need to SIR that you're coming to the university by May 1st, and that you need to complete your housing application by 4 p.m. on May 1st. Please note that once you SIR, it takes about 24 hours for you to have access to your housing application. So you will want to plan to do that. And once you do that, you should hear from us late May or early June this year about your housing placement. If you are a student who does not have a housing guarantee, we refer to you as being placed off of the wait list. I have great news for you. This year, we are very optimistic about being able to place many of our waitlist students because we are bringing on more beds for students. What's most important about our waitlist placement is we place students off of our waitlist based off of the date that you apply. So if you know you're coming to UCI and you know you want on-campus housing, apply SIR now so that you can apply now, and you will be well ahead. The bulk of our waitlist students who are incoming students apply in kind of the last week in April or early May. So if you're applying now, you're going to be well ahead of those people. And we're hoping that, again, as I said, we're hoping to get our housing guarantee offers out in June by early July so that we can quickly move to our wait list, and students coming in off of our wait list would get an offer for us from housing by August, so you know where you are, because we know that's one of the most anxious things is to not know if you're going to have housing or not. The other thing to know as an international student is student housing makes our housing offers based off of the date the apartment's available. And so some students would get a housing offer for a July or August move-in. As an international student, your visa may not allow you to be here yet then. And so if that is the case, please reach out to the student housing office. We would make you a second offer. We wouldn't necessarily hold that apartment, but we would work to make you an offer that aligns with when your visa allows you to be here. So please let us know that if that's the case. I'm going to put into the chat an email. It's our grad status email. If you have any questions about your application, your housing guarantee, or waitlist placement, or what to do, you can email us and we'd be happy to answer them.
Jennifer, can you just repeat those deadlines? We already have a request to hear them once more. And also if they're on Facebook, they don't see the chat. So
sure. So the most important deadline is May 1st. So SIR by May 1st. And you need to complete your housing application as a guarantee student by 4 p.m. on May 1st to keep your housing guarantee. Know that you're going to have to SIR before that. And if you're on our housing website, you would see our email address and everything on there, but you would email gradstatus@housing.hsg.uci.edu if you have any questions.
Fantastic. I will note we see a ton of questions in the chat about housing, as we anticipated that we might, but we will get to those, I promise, all in good time. I do want to make sure that we introduce the rest of our panelists and let them give some introduction, and then we'll go through all of the questions. So don't worry, we will get to all of your questions today. So I next want to go to two people who don't work in the same office, but work very closely together. And that is Archana Chef, who is our representative from the International Center today. So I'm going to warn you now, some of you are going to have a lot of detailed questions about your specific visa. This is not the right moment for that your specific visa question, but your broad questions, she's going to be really important to you. And then right after her, we'll switch over to Aimee Jiang, who is in graduate division, but is our specialist for international students within graduate division. So let me go to Archana first.
Thank you for that warm introduction. My name is Archana Chef. I am the Associate Director at the International Center, and I am really excited to welcome all of you. This is such an exciting period in your lives, so we're excited to be a part of this process for you. So at the International Center, I do want to highlight our main services for you, and I do see a couple of questions in the chat that I'll also try and get to, but we are the primary advisors on our campus in regards to visas and immigration related services. So for those of you who are coming onto campus in either a F1 or J1 student visa, we will be your advisors here on campus. So that encompasses a lot of things. Our main primary goal is to make sure that everything that you are doing academically aligns with immigration requirements here in the US. So we're here to provide guidance. We do that through classes, workshops, individual advising appointments. We partner with a number of individuals in this setting, as well as other campus partners, just to make sure that we get the information that you need in regards to immigration and make sure that it's available to you. We also support our scholars on campus, which is another sector of our office. So we're involved in a lot of that welcome process that you all go through orientation. We're working with offices to make sure that everything that you need is available to you. After I finish my little conversation here with you all, I'm going to send a couple of links to you that I think will be really important. We do provide this information to you through right now. Those of you who are getting ready to SIR or have SIR already, you'll be given this information first through your academic departments. So once you provide some information there, they're going to forward some information over to us, and we're going to provide you with even more information related to your immigration status and how to prepare to arrive to the US. So please know you read everything. I know it's a lot of information that you're getting. Immigration can be very overwhelming. So as an office, we want to be sure that we want to give you all of the services possible and information possible so that you feel comfortable in your arrival here. I do want to post a couple of links. I do see some questions related to employment in the US, and that's certainly something that is covered for students in detail on our website. We have workshops throughout the year that talk specifically about the requirements that need to be fulfilled from an immigration and academic perspective before you can participate. So we know that's a really important topic of discussion. And we know that it's a competitive market if you're here and looking for that work experience. So please know that we will provide you that information through various channels, especially once you arrive. But if you are interested, that information is on our website and I will link you. But what I do want to focus on just a little bit, which I think is really important and a nice resource, is the review of our International Student Handbook. I'll link that in the site in the chat momentarily, but I really, really cannot emphasize enough how important it is to just understand the information that's given to you there, which is what happens after you receive your immigration document. It talks about applying for a visa, getting ready to travel to the US. Many of the resources actually that Marcelle mentioned are actually also highlighted in that handbook, along with other campus offices that I think will be really important to your transition and during your time here. So I'll link you all to it so you have access to that handbook, but it's a great tool And I'll get to your questions. So I won't keep rambling, but thank you so much for having me here today, and welcome to all of you.
Okay, and over to Aimee.
Hi, my name is Aimee Jiang. I'm the International Student Support Officer for Graduate Division. And one of the big things that I do is I run a program called the Graduate Interconnect program. Graduate Interconnect is a program designed to help through the transition and through your first quarter as an international grad student. You are partnered with a current graduate student at UCI. They send emails, we do events. This year, we're planning on doing some panels, probably similar to this, on topics like, what did I bring from home? I know there was a question in the chat earlier about the difference between the quarter and the semester system, and that's been a big one. So we're hoping to maybe have a panel where students talk about their experience, maybe coming from a semester school and now being in the quarter system, or what the quarter system has felt like for them. So that might be something of interest for you. A lot of our communication, though, does come through email. So I know that sometimes there's hard access to email. It's hard to get access to your email. So what I would recommend is when you get access to your email, forward it to another email if you're concerned about losing access over the summer. That way you don't lose connection to your peer mentor, and also that way you're getting all of those important emails that come from your peer mentor, but also from the greater department and campus as well. We also have a blog site, which I will put in the chat. On the blog site, there's lots of things about academics, communication. I know there's been a lot of things written on like, what can I do in the local area? So if you've never been to Southern California before, there's some blogs on what can I do in LA, what can I do around campus in Irvine, even all the way down to what can I do in San Diego. There was a blog post written last year about visiting the national parks. I know some of our students have taken advantage of some of that time they have before school starts, but as they're able to come into the US to travel a little bit. So I'd encourage you to look through there, especially if there's something that you are a little concerned about now. There was a blog post also written by a student who's one of our peer mentors again this year, who is a parent who has a family with him. So if you're coming with kids and you're concerned about what kind of activities you can do with your kids in the area other than Disneyland, which is obviously very close, he had a lot of great things to talk about in there. I do encourage you, though, to get connected to your peer mentor. We know that sometimes students have not read the emails until they've gotten to campus, but it is a good relationship for you to have. It's someone that will be here on campus to help you as you transition. We also will be doing some in-person events end of August into September, just to welcome you here and make sure that you know that you have a good support system for you. Outside of Grad Interconnect, I am also just a resource here for you. Archana's office obviously does all the visa stuff. I know very little about that process. I will always send you there if those are the kinds of questions you have. But I'm here if you want to sit down and talk about any difficulty you're having transitioning or making friends or ways to get connected on campus. I'm always happy to sit down and chat with you about that. And welcome.
Thank you so much for that, Aimee. Don't worry, we only have a couple more panelists to introduce, and then we will get to the, 20 more questions I think that we have in the chat already. Thank you to the panelists for the rapid fire responding. I also want to make sure people know who are watching this on the Facebook stream, or if you're watching this later on the YouTube recording, please look below where there are comments, where our staff will be diligently putting all of the links that we're dropping into the Zoom right now, that you will be able to see those in those places. So don't worry. Let me introduce now next Ruth Quinnen. She's our Assistant Dean for Student and Academic Affairs in Graduate Division. And many of you are asking lots of detailed questions about policy and practices and how to do things. Ruth is your answer for all of these things. She runs the staff within Graduate Division and just has all the knowledge of these things. So over to you, Ruth.
Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to speak to all of you and really glad that you've decided to join us for this, and hope that you will decide to come to campus. As Gillian said, I'm the Assistant Dean for Academic and Student Affairs, and I generally deal a lot with policy. I also oversee some areas that have different retention programs for students, and our academic counseling office, which is, it's a resource for students. Students can meet with him. His name is Dr. Phong Luong. He also has an assistant, Amelle Beauvil, and they're wonderful people. Anytime a student would like to just talk about anything, feels like they need some help, or just someone to talk about, whether it's about their academics or about work-life balance, those are the people in our office to talk to. And as I said, they're wonderful people, a wonderful resource. Students can meet with them as often as they like. It's a free resource. So I think we will be sending out information about them and their services. But yeah, I mean, I can generally answer questions about policies and respect to admissions policies. And, if students have questions about enrollment or, different changes of status, whether it's leave of absence or part-time or in absentia, students who wish to do research, for example, elsewhere, usually in another country or another state, but sometimes California as well, can register in absentia. Generally, there are some things that pertain to that. Students usually should be advanced to candidacy, for example, but it's something that we offer to facilitate students' ability to do research elsewhere. I can typically answer questions about questions about funding, although those are best directed to your academic program first and foremost. Just give me a moment. There you go. So I can typically help students with policy questions, or if they're having difficulties and just, want to run something by anyone, feel free to contact me. I'm always happy to help. I'm always available either via email, or we are back on campus quite a bit of the time now. So we'll do walk-in appointments and all of those kinds of things. So basically it's another resource to help students and to give you information and to try and, help solve any problems or issues or concerns that you may have, or just say that we're really happy to see you and really happy that you're here. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Ruth. And please note in the chat, there are now the email addresses for those 2 graduate division counselors that Ruth was mentioning. So I always like to end my intros with our AGS president. So for those of you who don't know what AGS is yet, that is our Associated Graduate Students, that is our student government. And Connor Strobel, we are lucky enough to have him here, is the elected president for at least 3 more months, I think, writing his dissertation now. And I'm just going to take this moment to brag on him, as I like to do at every meeting possible. He is going to be a professor at the University of Chicago as of this fall. So wonderful news for Connor, and over to you.
Well, thank you for that. Good thing I have the background to hide me blushing, but welcome everyone. Welcome to UCI. I know it's sort of sad as I'm leaving, but seeing so many active folks in the chat and all of you in the participation box, I'm really excited that you have the opportunity to join a community that I've been privileged to call home for so long. So the Associated Graduate Students, as Dean Hayes mentioned, is your official student government. I know that might mean something to some folks, nothing to others, but in addition to just kind of working on, general campus business, we really work hard to try and build a sense of community on campus. You have really wonderful memories with folks in your cohorts and folks in your programs, where we try and do everything we possibly can to sort of get you out of the labs and out of the classrooms and, make friends, make memories and experiences with people all around campus. So as part of that, we'll be putting on events throughout the year on campus for you to sort of relax, blow off steam, make new friends. In that, we'll also provide resources for you to take part of in some of the wonderful activities that Southern California has to offer, whether that's trips to the beach or hikes or opportunities to kind of explore different cities and towns in the area, really trying to make sure that you enjoy your time in the classroom and out. We also do a variety of things kind of off campus too for folks in every discipline. We take graduate students to Sacramento and Washington, D.C. to take their skills and their honed expertise into the advocacy process too. So that way you can also be change makers and learn a variety of different professional development opportunities, whether that's in there, our annual graduate research symposium, or by facilitating a variety of grant programs to help fund travel to research conferences, professional networking associations, and the like. So I hope I'll drop our information in the chat in just a moment, but I encourage you to check out our website. We're quite active on social media, particularly on Facebook and Instagram. So check us out. We look forward to, as you sign up in the first week leading into the start of classes in the fall, we'll have some really wonderful welcome week events for you to kind of hit off the year right. But welcome. I can't say it enough. It is a great place to be. And hopefully, if you haven't learned it already, this here with 2 fingers on top, 1 on the bottom, and 2 up in the air, that's the Anteater Zot. So welcome to you all, and you made a good choice.
And now you can see why we always have to have Connor wrap up the panel introductions for us with the enthusiasm of a true student leader. So thank you to everyone. I'm gonna, so many questions have been flying by in the chat, and so that's wonderful. I'm going to start calling on some of our panelists to answer some of these live, some of which they may have already answered by chat, but I think would be useful for other folks to hear about. So no surprise, I want to turn to our housing folks first, if you all don't mind. Couple of things that I hear a lot from students in emails. Always get a lot of questions about how do we express our preferences. For example, different housing units, roommates, upper floors, lower floors, any disability needs, and so on. Maybe Jennifer, you just want to walk us through the application process quickly?
Absolutely, thank you. So our housing application should be open to you within 24 to 48 hours after you SIR. In the housing application, we ask you for a couple of different preferences. We ask you what type of floor plan you like. Do you want a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, a 4-bedroom? So you can express your preference for that. We ask you whether you plan to live with a roommate. So you would like to rent the apartment by the bed space or by the full apartment if you're coming with a partner or with children. And so we ask that. And then we also ask you about your preferred move-in month. And so knowing that some students need to come early in the summer, some students need to come later in the summer. So we ask that. And then from that, we try to do a best fit placement for you. Most important for students to know is there's a note section where we ask for comments or notes or any other information. So in that section, if you have a preferred roommate, you would list the name of you would say, I have a preferred roommate, and list their name. They need to indicate that they are also a preferred roommate. So we do kind of preferred roommate matches by both have to opt in to that. And then through that, we do our best to try to fit that. If you have any sort of accommodation need due to a disability, you would work with Disability Services Center, and they would provide the accommodation to us based off of that need. However, in the notes section, you can put, I'm working with Disability Services Center, I'm going to need a first floor bedroom or whatever that is. So we know to kind of tag in and kind of start reserving those spots for them. The sooner we know about the need for the accommodations, the sooner we can make sure we get the best fit placement for you from that. And similarly, if you're starting an early summer program, we do get that list from Grad Division and from the programs on who has an early start program, but it's helpful if you put in that notes section, like I'm starting classes on this date, or I'm taking part in this program, so we know to double check, and we will work to get you an early placement if you're a housing guarantee. Unfortunately, if you are going to be placed from our wait list without a housing guarantee, there's a good chance we will not know whether we would have a housing placement for you prior to the start of your early summer program. And so you would need to at least find alternative housing for the summer. We're happy if you contact us to talk you through different ways to sublease or different options we have available for that. But realistically, we probably won't know until midsummer whether we have a housing placement for you.
Thank you so much for that, Jennifer. And now let me switch over to Archana with, we have a lot of questions that I'm going to put under the category of what do I do if something goes wrong? So I've got my I-20, but I can't actually get in the country in time, or I'm not sure if my former institution, perhaps undergraduate or master's, is released me to the PhD, or all of these kinds of questions. And I know you can't answer them all in detail, but perhaps the broad, what do I do if something goes not the way I expected it?
Okay, thank you. I've been typing away. So thank you all for your questions. I'm going to highlight just a couple of things that I think will be really important in terms of just in the Q&A. If you haven't seen it, that's okay. But good things to know is once you SIR, your graduate departments will be forwarding some forms to you. Maybe you've already seen them. The forms are from our office. On those forms, you'll complete a lot of biographical information. You will share if you're currently going to a school here in the US, all kinds of things, financial statements and such. And we do need this as a part of the process to issue you a I-20 visa document. So for those of you who might currently be in the US going to another program and holding F1 status, my main recommendation would be for you to connect with the international advisor or office at your current school to determine the best date of the transfer of your CBIS record to UCI. So that information is going to be very helpful on the forms that you complete that will eventually come over to our office. If you're wondering about workflow, how this generally works is the quicker you submit those forms back to your department that are complete, your department will review and add some additional information in to give our office, and then we will process that request for you. Our processing time is 15 business days. We'll do our best to get it done as soon as we possibly can, but that is our general processing time, and that's notated on the instructions that you receive on those forms. The other questions that I was kind of requesting and that Dean Hayes alluded to was what happens if there's any delays. So most of you will be eligible to apply for your visa within 120 days of the start date of your program. So some of you might be beginning your programs here in the summer, some of you might be beginning in fall, and you will go through that process. Once you get your I-20, you will schedule a visa appointment at your local US consulate or embassy. And many of you will have a very smooth experience. My understanding is that all consulates and embassies, aside from where there may be some other world politics happening, that generally most are operating at full capacity. So you will attend your appointment, things will go smoothly. Hopefully you'll have your visa stamp in your passport and be ready to get here in the fall. If you have any issues throughout that process, maybe something like administrative processing, where your visa does take maybe up to 6 weeks to be processed, in an extreme circumstance, maybe you may receive a visa denial or something along those lines, please, I cannot emphasize enough, you can contact us right away. Please share your situation. An advisor in our office will definitely get in touch with you. We will ask you for the information that you've gotten from your local consulate or embassy, just to verify some of the information that you've been given so we can guide you better. So know that once you're in that process, you can certainly reach out to our office for that extra guidance should you need it. I did see a couple of questions about vaccines come up in the chat as well. So one of the things I do want to highlight for all of you is that if you are taking vaccines, it's going to be really important that the vaccine you're taking is WHO approved, because that is required for entry to the US. And then UCI also has vaccine requirements listed as for the campus. So I want to distinguish here that I've certainly been connecting with a lot of students who have taken vaccines, but they're not WHO approved. And so that's preventing travel to the US. So I want to encourage you to please look at the WHO vaccines. You can look at the CDC website. These are tools that the US government heavily uses for travelers to the US. And then of course, UCI has a lot of information about COVID protocols and campus happenings available on our website as well. So I do want to highlight that in terms of travel. I could keep going on, and I think I'm answering a lot of questions as I go. I think that there's still some more that are coming in that are being typed, but one more thing that I wanted to highlight, because I feel like this is coming up a lot in the chat, and I appreciate the enthusiasm for work authorization in the US. I agree. I think it's very important to have that practical learning experience. And so our campus does work very hard to make sure that we are providing as much information and opportunity as possible. The key thing to remember that I would recommend to all of you is that you can certainly take some time and review the International Center website. We have ample information there, but I will not be able to really advise you in great detail until you are an enrolled student here. So, one of the things is please start this process of becoming a student at UCI SIR and request your I-20. And then at that stage, when and I appreciate so much planning ahead and thinking long-term. I think it's really important to make these plans for your life journey. So what I would recommend is, for now, the information on our website is a great first start. And then once you're here, please start attending our workshops we host with our campus departments. We have weekly workshops about many of the topics that you all are asking about. So please take advantage of these resources because they're here for you and nobody else.
Thank you so much. That was a wonderful overview. I'm now going to take moderator's privilege and answer some questions. So we have a lot of questions about employment and financial support in the chat. So a couple of things to note. We do here at UCI, for all of our terminal research degree students, so those are PhDs and Masters of Fine Arts, have funding guarantees. So if you are in one of those programs, you should have received from your department a funding guarantee letter, which in most cases is going to be 4 or 5 or 6 years of support at the PhD level. For our MFAs, it'll be for the time of the degree. One of the questions we get a lot is is that stipend? Is that employment? What is that? It's very, very dependent on your program, and they may not know now what it's going to be for the future. So it may be that they don't know if 3 years from now they're going to support you on a TA-ship or a fellowship or as a graduate research assistant. What you need to know is that we have that minimum funding guarantee in place for you in whatever way it gets implemented. So that's the most important thing for you to know, is that we do have that guarantee. Exactly how the money comes is going to depend on things like, are you working for a faculty advisor who has grants on which they can support you? Or do you get a fellowship, either something competitive amongst the campus or from the department, and so on. So if you have specific questions about the actual details of your particular financial offer, if you're in one of those categories where you have a guarantee, please reach out to your department, but also just know they may not be able to tell you exactly which years you'll serve as a teaching assistant or which years you'll serve as a research assistant, and so on. So just something to be aware of. If you're not in one of those guarantee categories, so let's say you're a master's student who's not a Master's of Fine Arts, but any of our other master's programs, you may be interested in working on someone's research grant, or you may be interested in serving as a TA. And even as an international student, even if you're not in a STEM field, you are authorized to be allowed to do those positions. They're just not guaranteed. But once you get here, or possibly even before, you can reach out to your department, see if you can apply to be a teaching assistant, see if you can apply to be on someone's research grant, things like that. And you can have those opportunities. So it's not a guarantee for our master's students, but we do have a lot of master's students who do serve as teaching assistants and so on. So I'm just going to sort of note that. Connor, I want to invite you to see if you want to add anything from the students' perspective about sort of what the funding looks like for our students.
Yeah, so a lot of it can vary. Obviously, depending on the program, if you're in a lab setting or if you're not, you have some programs where the majority of people work as GSRs or graduate student researchers. You have other programs where the vast majority of folks work as TAs. And some it's a balance. And over time, if you're interested in gaining those research experiences or those teaching experiences, and either one of those might be less common in your program, those become increasingly available to you as you advance along your program, as you gain the necessary research experience or teaching or sort of subject matter expertise, and build those relationships with folks in your department to do those. So generally, sort of regardless of the program, there are opportunities to kind of dip your hand into both of those. And so, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. I know, Ruth, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but usually when you get your sort of contract offer, if it says you're guaranteed funding quarter or whatever it is, it doesn't necessarily say through what mechanism. Right? So, if it's, you can GSR the entire time, and that's great. You can TA the entire time, that's great. And so sort of however you strike that balance can be sort of subject to, what is kind of common in your discipline and where your interests are, and sort of how you work, how you decide to strike that balance with the advice of your advisor and things like that.
Thank you so much for that, Connor, and good introduction to Ruth, who I was going to turn to next anyway. We have a series of questions around sort of nervousness about, did I submit my SIR correctly? What are the deadlines? Did you get my transcripts? I can tell you this is the time of year where I walk by and see piles of FedExes on people's desks. So your transcripts are somewhere. But Ruth, I don't know if you want to answer a few of those questions and just kind of let people know where we are at this point in our process.
So, yeah, Gillian is correct. We are in the midst of receiving hundreds of official transcripts. So please be patient with us as we work through that. If you've sent them, we should have them. However, just give us a little bit of time. We rarely lose a transcript, but if you happen to get an email from our office saying, hi, we haven't received it yet, which wouldn't actually happen until probably August, by which time we would have made our way through the transcripts we've received so far. If you do get an email from our office, then please let them just respond and say that, it was sent. Here's the approximate date it was sent. If there's any identifying features, if there were additional names on the transcript, for example, that, weren't necessarily on your application, things like that would help us identify your transcript, and we'll work with you on that. So basically, we like to have those by the beginning of fall quarter, but we understand that not everyone can get them by then. So we typically give students a quarter or two to do that. I know there are some countries where students are only given one degree conferral document or transcript. So we will, bring that in with you when you come to campus, and we will take a copy of that and give you back the original, because I understand totally that the original is a very important thing for you to have. Let's see, what other questions do we have?
Maybe just walk those who haven't had a chance to SIR yet through what that process is, because there seems to be a little bit of anxiety about, did I answer my SIR correctly?
So typically students are informed that they're admitted, and they're given, a link to SIR. If you feel like you weren't given that link, please email me, and we will make sure that is resent to you. If you want to know if the SIR has been submitted correctly, you can contact your department that you've applied to and been admitted to. They will tell you if they see that you've SIR'd. You can also contact our staff and just ask, do you see my SIR? Is it in the system? There is a student portal. Typically, you should be able to log into that and see if the SIR has been received. But if there's some glitch, or you can't see it, or you're not sure, please email us. Don't just wonder and kind of be nervous. We'd absolutely rather that you email us, and we'll check on it for you. It's a pretty simple process. It opens up a page. It's web-based, and asks a few questions. From our perspective, are you going to come to UCI? And we hope you say yes. And asks, why have you chosen UCI? Things like that. It's just some pretty simple questions. But yeah, if in doubt, please email us, and we'll check on it for you.
And there is a main email address, which is gradapplicant applicant@uci.edu, GRAD applicant@uci.edu. So please do email into that account. Please also note this is the time of year where that account is exploding. As I imagine, the grad housing email account is probably also exploding. So please do bear with us. It may take us a couple of days to get back to you. And I'm told the International Center's accounts tend to explode this time of year as well. I know this is not going to be a satisfying answer, but if you email more than once, it's not necessarily going to speed up the response. It's a little bit like when my computer doesn't work and I just start pounding on the keys. It makes me feel better for a moment, but it doesn't actually make the computer respond any faster. So just bear with us, but do please email into those accounts, and we process them as fast as we can this time of year. So I'm going to turn to a couple of the questions that we got ahead of time. They're not in the chat. One of which, is a little bit switching gears. I think we've so far been a lot talking about the practicalities of just getting here, getting everything in place and so on. But had a couple of questions come in ahead of time about where can I go for career advice? What can I do? Already thinking about professional development and so on. We have a lot of experts on this call who can speak to some of those things. Let me start with Connor, though, because he's got the closest to it and he's just gone through the job search, so may have some thoughts for all of you.
So if I understood right, Jillian, just because I was answering something in the chat, you want me to talk about some of the professional development resources on the campus?
And career as well.
Perfect. Yeah. So the nice thing, because it's it's a nicely sized campus, that there are things both at the department and programmatic level that you'll be sort of exposed to. And if you have questions about that, I encourage you to reach out to either the program coordinator in your department or the graduate studies coordinator in your department. And they can tell you a little bit what might go on within some of the classes and then some of the sort of co-curricular things in the department. There are also a variety of sort of career counselors and services that go on at the school level, whether you're in engineering or social science or the humanities. And they do a lot of things for general professional development, but then also things that might be tailored to industries or roles that most closely align with the discipline in some of the places that students with those degrees tend to go to. There are also campus-wide opportunities. There's the Division of Career Pathways, and there they have wonderful staff who they do workshops, they'll do trainings, they also do one-on-one consultations. So if you want someone to look at your specific resume and help you tweak it, you want to do a practice job interview, you want to do a variety of other things to kind of feel prepared, they're really great. There's also it's a big acronym, so I'll have someone else quiz you when you get here. But there's the Graduate and Professional Student Resource Center, or the GPSRC. So Fern, wonderful job. I said that too fast. I appreciate it. And they do a variety of wonderful trainings too, about whether it's building a LinkedIn profile, making sure your resume or your CV speaks to a variety of different industries or places that you might want to go. So you can get both the personalized sort of discipline or role specific advice, training, and preparation, as well as a variety of sort of generalist and big picture things. There are a ton of career and job fairs throughout the year. Some of them can be sort of very big picture, firms, agencies all over the country, global firms as well, that can attract people from a variety of disciplines. Schools in the university at large also put on disciplinary specific ones. Those take on a variety of different formats. There's also, AGS puts on in the spring, the annual Graduate Research Symposium, where you have the opportunity to, you'd almost do practice job talks and present your research and do things like that. And there's also, there's a fund that the Associated Graduate Students manage. I think I mentioned it in my intro, that if you sign up for a conference, and that can be to present your research, that can be for the purposes of networking, and you want to be able to go sort of meet people, have those informational conversations, figure out how did they get your dream job. We sort of have some money there set aside to help you do that too. So there are a ton, and it goes on all year. And I think more often than not, you're going to have to figure out what not to do than what to do.
Thank you so much for that. Marcelle, I know this isn't technically under your provenance as the health and wellness person, but as the closest person to student affairs, I don't know if you want to comment at all on some of the opportunities around growth, both as a person and a professional that you all have.
Right. I mean, Connor really said everything. They've moved the division of career pathways around now. So I think now it's actually under the provost. But, as far as personal development, obviously the counseling center, and I think people think that it's just for mental health, that you have to be very ill to go to the counseling center. And I think it's just really, sometimes it's just around stress. One important thing around career development that you will notice the first month that you come in is that your relationship with your advisor is an integral part of your ongoing career development, right? Perhaps for the rest of your life. And so navigating those relationships can be challenging, and coming to talk with a counselor about a stressor or about how well it's going. Come talk to us about how amazing your advisor is. But sometimes navigating those relationships is really going to be important for your career development. And you can do that at the counseling center. Same thing with the social worker, if there are things that you need for transportation, to go to a conference, to go to other things. I mean, there are monies that students are eligible for, and that might be really important if you've got most of what you need for hotel and this, but there's something that you're just not quite able to afford that would be really important for your professional development. That's something that you can certainly tap us to do. One of the things that we don't think about is you may be traveling all over the world for, jobs at one point, and how do you get there, and how do you make sure that you're dressed appropriately, and there's lots of things that go into really putting your best foot forward for interviews. I think that's all that I would really share right now in terms of professional development, but there are certainly lots of resources to make sure that you have everything that you need to kind of get through the program and then graduate and go on to the thing that's really waiting for you afterwards.
Thank you so much for that. I just want to note really quickly, I see a couple of hands up in the audience. Because we are fielding so many questions, we're not going to take any verbal questions from the audience. And I apologize, I should have said that earlier. So do please go ahead and type your questions into the Q&A if you are one of those that's got your hands up. So I wanted to throw out there, we've got a great question here, and this is the one that I distracted Connor while he was in the middle of answering, I think, about culture and sort of what does it feel like to be a graduate student here? Now, I want to really encourage you all to make use of your Graduate Interconnect mentors and partners, as well as work with the AGS students and so on. Obviously, we have Connor here today, so you can hear from one student, but really encourage you to reach out. Sometimes culture is as tiny as your little group of students who are advised by a particular faculty member. So really talk to a lot of people about what that's like. But let me also invite any of our panelists who might want to comment on some of what they see students doing or what it feels like to be around here. And perfect, Connor's already got his hand up and he'll answer for us first.
Yeah, so I think the reason why I came here compared to other universities was this is a very collegial place. You might see, a lot of universities have a reputation for being sort of cutthroat or being stark. Here, the weather matches the mood. People love to sort of celebrate the wins and achievements of each other and figuring out how to, challenge people to be like their best researchers and scholars and all the successes they might want in life. And I think compared to many other universities, UCI is really, really special in that regard. One of the challenges of a university, and this is true for, all grad programs everywhere, is, I'm sure you worked unbelievably hard when you were an undergraduate or if you're finishing up another graduate degree somewhere. But you'll be immersed in like the nuances and like sort of technical aspects of your discipline. Sometimes you forget to look up, and maybe you see the folks in your lab, you see some of the other folks whom you might share an advisor with, but sometimes you need to remember you're in a place where it's sunny 350 days out of the year. We're right near the beach. We're near the mountains. We're near Hollywood and San Diego. Some of the greatest food and life in the country. And so just always try to remember to sometimes take a step back, take a breath, utilize some of the resources that Dr. Hayashida talked about. And that's where some of the folks at the schools kick in, some of the centers that you're hearing from today, and AGS try and work to try and entice you to sort of pull you out of pull you out of your books periodically to kind of help strike that balance. But it is definitely a far more sort of sunnier campus culture than you'll get at many places.
I love that answer, Connor. And I will tell you, now my professorship is in the School of Information and Computer Sciences. I know we have a lot of people from ICS on this call, so yay. Our building is right next to a venue where there are weddings. And so I regularly walk out of my office stressed out after a day of writing papers or grants or whatever I'm doing. And there's like beautiful flowers and music playing and all the rest. And I am reminded that I live in essentially a resort. So I completely agree with you, Connor. It's a beautiful, beautiful place to live. Aimee, do you want to maybe add anything as someone who spends a lot of time with our international students?
Yeah, I mean, I think Irvine and Orange County, Southern California in general, is really a diverse area. So a lot of my students have mentioned things like it was easy for me to find a grocery store that had things that I would normally get back home. So I feel like, especially in Irvine, we've got quite a few different grocery stores that have foods from around the world. So there's easy access to having a piece of home in your new home. And I think that that's really important. I think it's important to connect with people that may be from similar backgrounds as you, but also this is an opportunity for you to get to know people from around the world. We have a very large international graduate population who come from every place that you can imagine. And so what better place for you to experience that and get to know people who come from different places than you than here on campus. I'm also not from Southern California. I grew up in Washington State, and I remember moving down. I moved into LA first and then moving to Orange County into Irvine. It feels safe. There's lots of trees, there's lots of parks, there's lots of biking pathways. If you are someone who likes to go outside, Irvine is this weird sense of like, I'm in a city, a college town, and in nature all at the same time. And I think that that plays into some of what Connor was talking about. It's a very peaceful and joyful place. And I sense that on campus and also just in the surrounding community. And again, we have some blogs on the blog site about some of those things and some of those grocery stores and places to go. So I do encourage you to see what other grad students have had to say about it.
Thank you so much. Anyone else want to weigh in on the culture and life experience for our graduate students? I see Connor putting in all of the lists of grocery stores that you can get to. Maybe we'll try to put a list up. It's certainly the case that there are a lot of various options. And great point, lots of discounts if you show your UCI Net ID. So very good. Let me turn it back to our friends in housing. They may have comments on some of there's a lot of activities and fun things in housing, so they may have comments on that. But also, there's a variety of questions that have come through in the chat that I see Jennifer diligently responding to as fast as she can, but may be useful to sort of voice for everyone else around what's the deal with some places being furnished and some not? What's the deal with how many options can I get, different things to choose from, or am I going to only get one thing, or sort of where do we go from here on some of those questions?
Yes, thank you. So regardless of whether you're a guarantee student or a waitlist student, your housing application lets you choose the different kinds of floor plans that you would like. You have to choose at least one, but you can choose all of them if you're interested. For guarantee students and for waitlist students, I would encourage you to choose as many as possible. For guarantee students, if you choose just one and we don't have that floor plan available, and it's right? One of our limited floor plan, then we have to make the best selection for you because we don't know what your second or third choice would be for that type of floor plan. So we would give us more information. We're going to try to give you your top choice if we can't your second, but the more information we have, the better fit we can make for you. For waitlist students, we would not make a placement for you in a floor plan that you did not choose. So if you choose just one floor plan, you might be on the wait list a lot longer than somebody who gives us 10 different options. There were questions about pictures of the different floor plans. On our website, you will find that we do have the layouts for all the floor plans, the apartment type floor plans on. They don't all have photos on them. That is a process that we've taken part of and started. In order to do that, we actually need an empty apartment, or we need someone to agree to let us go in. And so our marketing team is working to start going into apartments to get photos, because we know that's really helpful to you for this floor, but we're not going to have photos of all of them. In terms of what's furnished and not furnished, on-campus apartments, Campus Village, Verano Place, and Palo Verde are all unfurnished apartments for graduate students. So know when you're coming in, they're unfurnished. We do have, and Connor, I'm sure could speak to this, but we have a lot of grad students who are moving out, who on Facebook pages and different things like to sell their furniture or pass their furniture along to people moving out. So it is possible to get a lot of furniture really cheap. That happens a lot in the summer. In terms of if you really need a furnished apartment, there are a few furnished apartments in American Campus Communities, ACC, and you can see that on the application and indicate that.
Fantastic, thank you. We've got some additional sort of pragmatics questions that let me just run through some of them, and everyone else on the panel, please jump in. There's some questions about public transportation. I will tell you that Southern California is a car-dependent place, in the sense that if you want to go very far, the likelihood is you're going to need to go there on some sort of motorized vehicle. But we do have options that help you. So there are shuttle buses that take you to various places. There are zip cars on campus. So those are sort of easily to be accessed rentals and so on. And so I wouldn't say if you don't own a vehicle already that you necessarily need to go and purchase one, but you may need to avail yourself of a vehicle of some kind. And there are gyms, grocery stores, and so on near campus that are very walkable for if you're living in one of our communities. And Connor, I think, has something to add to that.
Sure, and I encourage you to take a look at the interactive map of the campus. It shows not just the things on campus, but some of the things that surround it. The ARC, the Anteater Recreation Center that Dr. Hayashida had mentioned, actually sits kind of right at the side of most of the graduate housing, particularly in Verano, PV, and many of the American Campus Communities or ACC units. And so that, depending on where you are, is a 2 to 8 minute walk to the gym, and they have, I think they open from 6 to 11, so you can easily kind of fit that in your schedule, no matter night hour or morning person. In terms of grocery stores, there are 2 within walking distance to campus. There's Albertsons, which is a large sort of national chain, is in a Trader Joe's, as well as a sort of a smaller to go Target in the University Town Center sort of shopping plaza, both of which are right across the street. So you can perfectly sort of get your groceries and get your workouts in by walking. The campus is expanding some of its sustainable transportation options, in addition to the zip car fleet, which is growing, and the Anteater Express, which can kind of get you around the periphery of campus. The UCI transportation is working sort of negotiated passes for the OC Transportation Authority, which kind of runs the municipal bus line as well. Generally, if you think that you have sort of regular needs to sort of travel to specific places around camp, sort of within the area or broader, I check those bus routes ahead of time. But we have been working quite fastidiously with transportation to really make sure that those zip cars can be pretty competitively priced. So that way, unless you need a car all the time, you can get away without having to pay for one.
Thank you for that. I'll just, as a side anecdote, tell you my children refer to that target as the sad target because it is clearly made for students. It's got groceries and UCI apparel and office supplies. It has no toys. So if you have children, it is the sad target that does not sell toys. Let me flip back. We are getting close to the end of our time, but let me flip back to housing. I know, no surprise, more housing questions. This one comes up a lot. So the sort of the leases being for a full year, what do people do in the summers and so on if they either go back to their home country or for an internship somewhere?
So yes, our leases are for a full year. The exception to that is if your apartment is not available or we offer when it start date. So many students move in sometime in the summer and then all of our leases end June 30th, regardless of when you moved in. So that's what we mean by available for a full year. If you were to sign a renewal, you would sign your lease renewal for July 1st through June 30th of the following year. Many students who are going away for internships or other things, research or just to travel, choose to sublease their apartment so that they can keep the apartment and they don't need to move out and do everything else. That is by far probably the easiest thing for students to do, although there is some challenges to subleasing in that process. We can't guarantee if you move out that we will be able to place you at the time you want to come back. So that's why subleasing is better. We're working to improve it on ways different people can sublease. In ACC communities, they have year-long leases. Some of their leases go from June to June and other leases go from September to September, but they're all full year as well.
And I'll just remind people of a question asked very early, which is if we don't have our housing yet and we want to come in the summer, what are our options? So you just heard about the desirability of people wanting to sublease their apartments. Those are, as I understand it, pretty good opportunities for people if you are going to come early in the summer, particularly if you don't have a housing guarantee. And so you're hoping to be placed in the fall. That's a good opportunity. We have a beautiful new housing development opening in the fall. And so I would anticipate a lot of sort of turnover right around that time. And so summer subleases may make some sense for some of you who want to arrive a little bit early. We do have a question. I just want to clarify this to make sure it's super crystal clear, because I know we get this point of confusion sometimes. Saying you are coming to UCI does not necessarily mean that you are waitlisted or have applied for housing, or even that you have applied even if you have a guarantee. We do really need by May 1st, I think that's right, Jennifer, right? May 1st, you must apply for housing. So we have this question a lot. Well, I have an SIR deadline of this or ISIR. Doesn't that mean that I'm in housing? No. Those are two separate deadlines, two separate processes. If you have any questions at all, email Jennifer's office. They will help you, but you do really need, it's not always assumed that you're going to move into housing. And we do have students who have guarantees, for example, who turn that down and choose to live somewhere else. And so you do need to actually do that housing question. So we do still have some more questions in the chat, and we didn't even get to all that were emailed ahead of time, but we are closing in on the end of our time together. So I want to make sure that we turn to our panelists and check if there's anything that they saw come up a lot in the chat. We answered 86 questions in the Q&A. So I'm sure I didn't even see them all go by. The panelists were answering so quickly. If there's anything that you want to make sure gets reiterated to the larger group, or if you have any advice for people starting out their graduate programs this fall, any thoughts from our panelists? And I will start calling on you if you don't unmute yourselves and volunteer.
I'll go first. I know I talked about Grad Interconnect. I forgot to mention one of the key things, and someone did ask about it. You are automatically, as an incoming international graduate student, placed into the program. So we just assume you would like that additional support. And so you'll start receiving emails. Those emails will most likely start coming out at the end of June. want our students that are currently active to finish their quarter, and then they'll start reaching out and supporting you more so through the summer. You will receive an email first from me, usually at the end of May, early June, letting you know that we have your contact and that we're going to be reaching out to you. But I did put the email in the chat, the Grad Interconnect email or my email. If you have questions ahead of time, you're welcome to email me and let me know what questions you have. My big advice would be no question is a bad question. If you have concerns or questions, just ask them. I know I've had a lot of students say, I didn't want to sound stupid, or I know you've already told me this. I forget things too. I don't always understand what my doctors or my boss or my colleagues tell me. So sometimes it's just important to ask the question, ask it multiple times if you're still not understanding what is required of you. So don't be afraid to do that.
Thank you, Aimee. And so just to reiterate, if you are an international student, you will be assigned a Grad Interconnect mentor. So that will be a more senior student, but many programs also have additional mentorship once you arrive, both for our US-based students and our international students. So mentorship is definitely a thing you'll hear about a lot here at UCI. We try to put a lot of emphasis on it, and there's various opportunities. So thank you for that, Aimee. Anyone else with final thoughts for our attendees? Jennifer?
My advice would be apply for housing and apply early if you think you want to. I can't tell you the number of students I talked to who just missed the deadline and because they forgot about it and they got busy in May. So if you're a guarantee student and you know you're coming, apply now and apply early. If you're a waitlist student, and meaning you don't have a housing guarantee, and you think you might want housing or you don't know where you're going to live, I would suggest you apply for housing as you explore it. Many students think they're going to live off campus and then see off-campus housing rates and then kind of come to us really in tears because they don't have housing, but it's September, we don't have a space. So if you apply now, our housing application is $20 to apply. Your name is then moving up on the wait list every month as you're looking at it, and you can defer it if you need to defer for a couple months or something.
Yeah, that's a great point. No one is going to force you to say yes to a lease. So if you think that you might want one, you should ask for one. You can always say no later. Thank you. Connor?
So I think in some ways, you come here because the program you got into almost as a rule is one of the best of its kind in the world. And that's sort of not really like, then that truly isn't an exaggeration. But what makes UCI one of the top international universities in the world is not just the programs. Like that scales for a variety of the resources and programs that go on campus. And so I encourage you, every year that you're in school, it goes by faster. Like you're even if you're in a 1-year master's program, you're in a 8-year PhD program, every year goes by faster. So I encourage you as you sort of touch down to, really try and familiarize yourself with all the resources that the campus has to offer, because by the time you look up, the first quarter's already gone. And by the time you start thinking, oh, I figured out sort of where I want to go, what I want to do, the second quarter seems to already have wrapped up. So just make sure that, you're able to take a breath, make memories, but then also you utilize all of the resources around campus that can really help accentuate and have a compound effect on what you learn here and what you experience here.
Thank you for that. Quickly, I want to make sure we've been using jargon. We've been saying guarantee and waitlist student a lot on the housing front. I just want to make sure you know our PhD students, our Masters of Fine Arts students, those terminal research degrees are the guarantees. And then everyone else is basically going to be waitlist. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to Jennifer, but that's your sort of rough heuristic to help you know that information. All right. What other final thoughts do we have for our students today?
Yeah, I would just say that, please do keep in mind all of the immunization requirements to enroll, really important. There are consequences to not uploading all of your information in a timely fashion. And we understand that things are moving quickly with COVID in particular. And so please keep your eyes on, again, obviously once you've SIR'd, whatever the requirements are for uploading data and information. because there are consequences. Some students cannot currently access Wi-Fi because they have not met their vaccine requirements. So please do that.
All right. I've got a question about placement data here in the stats or in the Q&A. I'll just say to you, my team in grad division is amazing. I just wrote to them and asked, do we have this and can we make it public? And they said, yes, let's see if we can get it done before this town hall ends. I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but we will put it with the YouTube and Facebook information.
And also reach out to your program directors, because they can also give you a more specific information about maybe specific firms or organizations, universities where people are going, in sort of more of the nuance that you might be looking to. So as always, for any of the information you got today, always, if you're looking for more, reach out to all the great contacts and the great people here that Derek put in the chat. But you've been offered to come, so make sure you reach out to the program directors. As much as you like to get all the answers you need, so that way when you get here on day one, you feel empowered to sort of make the most of your time here.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And I'll just reiterate, I think it was Aimee who said there's no such thing as a dumb question. You might email the wrong place and we might tell you, we don't know, email this person, but that doesn't mean it was a dumb question. You should always reach out, and hopefully you've now got at least some set of names and faces that you know that you can talk to. And once you get your grad interconnect peer mentor, they are incredibly savvy at navigating this campus and can help you know exactly who the right people are to reach out to. So with that, let me wrap us all up and say thank you. For some of you, this was the middle of the night, so spending 90 minutes with us, going through the nitty-gritty details is really appreciated. And thank you to all of our wonderful panelists here today. This is absolutely their busiest time of year, and you've all taken a big chunk of time out to talk with our wonderful soon-to-be students. Welcome to UCI. We are thrilled to have you, and please stay in touch. We'll see you on campus in the fall.